Hi, Lee Right from Horizon Southern Foods here. Just wanted to give a recap on my race at Boulder Beast 2017 in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania yesterday. It was a beautiful day. It was in the 80s, started at 7 a.m. It's about 27 miles with about a little over 7,000, supposed to be 7,000 feet of climb, but it ended up being a little over 6,000 feet of climb because I had to reroute because of logging. This is not an entry-level race. It's advertised as such for very good reasons. So I told my cross-country, some kids on the cross-country team I helped coach, that my goal was top 10. That's what I was striving for. So when the gun went off, you might think, well, an ultra race start out slow, conserve, but the thing is, in these races, you know that some of the terrain is going to be intense. So this race started out on dirt roads and some pavement, so I wanted to make time where I could. And I thought it was only supposed to be like a mile on roads, but it ended up being, I don't know, 3 or so, whatever it was. So I tried to get in the top 10 within a few minutes. And I maintained that until we got to the woods, and I passed the person right away. Definitely, as soon as you got in the woods, what came? Hills, rocks. It was definitely living up to be the challenging course that I had hoped for. I like hills, I like climbing, not so good on the downhills, that's my weakness. But anyway, so I was, the whole race I was in between 8th and as low as 14th. But to start, I was catching one or two people on the climbs, moving up to like 8th. But as soon as we got a downhill, downhills are still rocky, and I've run my share of downhills and rocks, but I just am not that fast downhill. And these guys just, as soon as the downhill starts, I can hear them coming behind me, and they just blow right by me, and they get a pretty good lead. Well, then, we got, I think it's about, 6 miles into it, and you got this huge boulder field, not a tree in sight going up this thing. But you know what? It was awesome. I love that part. Felt great, felt good, and made some time up on that. Going down then you hit the ridge on top, super rocky on the ridge, it's kind of going flat for a little bit, but hard to make any time because it's so rocky. And then from there, eventually the downhills, I think, got to some pretty runnable sections where it wasn't that rocky. You could make time in some dirt forest roads and some light trails. So I made time where I could. I put on the speed because I knew what was coming. You might go from a 7-minute mile pace in one part, and like a half an hour mile is coming up because of the hills. So at about mile 12-ish is the hardest climb in the race, called Barb's Kiss My Ass, and this thing was brutal. By this point, as soon as I started going up it, my legs could feel it, and I went from feeling really good to basically feeling like it was a race. And it took me a long time to climb this thing. It was all rocks, straight up. I've climbed some hills in my day, but this one was the hardest that I've done, by far. And all my friends that I was with agreed that it was the hardest part. So then got to the top of that. It was definitely feeling like a race. My legs were no longer working that well. So I kind of hit a low point after that. Had to end up, after some downhills, I'd have to end up walking some little uphills that normally I could run up, but legs just felt like jello. And finally I met up with one guy, and I just stayed behind him. I was able to talk to him for a few miles. It kind of, took my mind off the race, revived me, slowed me down a bit. And then, we were at 13th, 14th position at that point. But probably about mile 16 or 17, now we're on like dirt forest roads, and it's a pretty good climb, but not super steep, but just kind of like that gradual kind of climbs. But I was feeling better now. Now I was getting my second wind. So we came across a group of 3 guys in front of us, and I started pulling away from the pack now. Now the climbing training was paying off. I was starting to feel revived. So I got ahead of them, but on the next downhills, 1 or 2 caught me, same thing. Next climb, caught them again. Anyways, by the last aid station, it's pretty much neck and neck with a few guys. We're basically all about going for in the 10th spot, 11th spot, and such. And so then they said at the last day it was all downhill. I'm like, no, that's what they always say. Like, no, it really is mostly pretty much downhill to the finish. And it was. And it was only like 5 miles of the finish. So I was like, whoa, I thought it was 7 miles of the finish. But the course markings were a little off, so I didn't have quite as far as I went to go. So that gave me a huge boost in morale, and I took off down this dirt road at quite a rapid clip. Feeling pretty good again. I managed that pace till we got more down into the town. Now it's kind of into the paved road, slowed down a little bit. Then it came to like mile or so, death march I called it, across this grassy field. So hard to run through that grass, and it was hot. Most of the race was like in more shady, so like I didn't notice the heat that much, but you got into this open section in the sun. Now I could feel it, and it just seemed like it took forever to get through this grassy field. It was long and hot and just so slow. By the time I came out the grassy field, there was only a little bit to go on the roads, but I was not going that fast at that point. And needless to say, I did finish in 10th at 5 hours and 50-some minutes. So I was really happy with that. But you know, some comments I'd say on this type of run, and again, you have to you know, run the course, so to speak. You got to make time where you can, because you know there's going to be some tough climbs coming. And I stuck with, you know, experience told me, eat before I'm hungry, drink before I'm thirsty. So I had my homemade gels, homemade sports drink. Even though I wasn't hungry, about 5 miles in, I started eating some gels, and then at like mile 10 and so on. I drank a lot of water, and then of course at the end of the day still dehydrated. It's amazing. But I never felt like I was losing energy. I never felt like I was dehydrated. It just felt like the legs were just at one point, you know, just like, oh man. And so, you know, the ultras are, they're always interesting races. At least me, for usually I go for a low point where I'm like, oh, I can't wait till this is over. Sometimes it takes a turn and you feel better, but you just gotta get through those points. But this is the type of race where, like, those downhills, like in those rocks, like a lot of the downhills, you just couldn't get any speed. At least I couldn't. More experienced guys could, because it's just so rocky. You know, just like, this is one of the few races the day after where actually my muscles up here, my quads feel sore. Usually it's just down in here. But I held up structurally better than I thought I would. Still had some issues, of course, at the end to be expected, but not nearly as bad as normal. I didn't pass out in the grass like I normally do, and then I can't barely walk. I did pretty good. But this type of race, you have to be like fit all around your core, your upper body, because you're taking such a pounding. But it was a great race, and I encourage you to try it. But I would get some, you know, shorter distances, less intense races under your belt first, because it's a tough one. So, and of course, as always, one of my keys is healthy foods. You know, the healthy foods give me the ability to get out and train, recover quicker than I would normally, and just keep me strong. So that's really my only secret. Just like to show people that yes, you can be strong on a plant-based diet, and it's actually a huge advantage. Sure, I'm not the fastest guy out there, but relatively for me, and knowing what I was in the past, I'm very happy with where I'm at, and I hope to continue. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to carb up, don't forget to green up, and go out there and train for some races.